Hey, what's happening, people? How y'all doing? Welcome to another episode of Messages in the Madness with yours truly, Vernon Longhorn Davis. Y'all come on in. Have a seat. Good to see you. Always great to see you. Hope you've had a great week, an awesome week, fantastic week. Come on in, people. Come on in. I thank y'all. Y'all know I look forward to these Sunday shows, man. Coming in here, being with you guys, getting up in the morning, writing these shows. I think about them all week a lot of times, and come up with my topics and bat them around a little bit. Talk to Mr. Ned about them, and yeah. So I look forward to it. Hey, Miss Coley, good to see you. Hey, brother August, good to see you as well. Mr. Ned. Hey, Mr. Ned, how you doing? Yeah, good to see you. Man, I'm just happy. Talked to my sister today, which is always great. Hey, Miss Marion, good to see you. Um, but yeah, I talked to my sister today. So we have this thing where we talk every Saturday, but we missed yesterday, so we got to talk today. Brother Jerry, good to see you. I It's been kind of a topsy turvy week for me. Hey, Miss Charlotte, good to see you. But like I said, it's been kind of a topsy turvy week for me, but we made it. I'm here, and I'm gonna ask y'all to keep some of my family members in your prayers. This was really a rough week for them, so if you'll do that, I'd greatly appreciate it. But Miss Coley, I know you're listening, so the topic for tonight, I'm gonna give you the short version of the topic for tonight. The topic tonight is called the case against yourself. The case against yourself. You got that, Miss Coley? Now, the whole title is called The Case Against Yourself Before You Reach a Verdict. And I'm gonna give y'all a fair warning. This one's gonna be kind of a long show. I think it's gonna run about 30, 35 minutes. So hey, hang in there with me. All right. Hey, son, good to see you. Good to see you. But like I say, guys, I'm glad you guys are here. Jerry, I'm glad you had a good week traveling, that you made it home safely. But again, like I said, it's been kind of a rough week for some of my family members. So I'm gonna ask you to keep them in your prayers. All right. So let's get to the message. All right. There there are some conversations that stay with you for a few hours after you have them. And then there are conversations that follow you around for days. And I've talked about those conversations here on the show. You replay them in your mind while you're driving down the highway. They sneak into your thoughts while you're mowing the yard or standing in the grocery store waiting in line. It happens. You don't replay them because of what was said, you replay them because of what they revealed. And I had one of those conversations recently. Jerry says, I turned 49 tomorrow. Not sure how I feel about that. This year has been a different year. Jerry, just celebrate, bro. Happy 49th to you. It started like most conversations between friends do. Phone rang, I answered. We spent a few minutes talking about something completely ordinary. A friend of mine called to ask about a supplement I take every day. We compared notes, talked about what I tried, what seemed to work for me, and whether or not I thought it would work. It was worth taking. Nothing deep, nothing emotional. Just two friends talking. Hey, baby sis. Now, look, you're officially entered a new season of life when your hot, exciting phone calls with old buddies aren't about sports cars or sports or wild weekends anymore. They're entirely dedicated to joint health, fiber intake, and which vitamin stops your knees from making a clicking sound when you get out of a chair. Yeah, that right there, my friends, is peak male bonding. That's what that is right there. He's also a fellow comedian and a veteran like me. He's still chasing the dream. He's working comedy gigs whenever he can and pouring his energy into an even bigger goal, his own comedy club. And yes, a lot of comedians want to own their own comedy club. I would like to own my own comedy club. Anybody who has ever chased a dream knows that dreams have a funny way of costing more than we expected. They cost time, sleep, money. Sometimes they even cost confidence. And as our conversation was winding down, I asked him what I thought was a simple question. I asked him, "How you doing?" "Yeah, bro, how you doing today?" I wasn't asking out of habit. I wasn't looking for the automatic answer, that people give. I'm good, can't complain, everything's fine. I wanted to know how he was really doing because, see, I knew he had, like I said, I knew he had had some health issues and some other challenges. Now, there was a pause on the line, not an awkward pause. It was that kind of silence that happens when someone is trying to decide whether they're going to tell you the truth or not. Then the floodgates open. He started talking about his health. He described physical problems that seemed to follow him everywhere. Some days his body cooperates and some days it doesn't. The pain isn't always the same, but it's always there, somewhere in the background, reminding him that his life isn't as easy as it used to be, that he doesn't get around like he used to when he was 49. Then we talked about money and finances. Anyone who has ever worked in entertainment understands that comedy is not a 9 to 5 job. Some weeks you're working, some weeks you're wondering where the next booking is coming from. You're constantly promoting yourself, making calls, sending messages, introducing yourself to people who may not even remember your name next week. They may not. It's exciting when the calendar is full, and it's discouraging when it's empty. He admitted that some mornings it's difficult just to get out of bed. Then he said something that caught my attention. He told me that he battles his demons. Oh, I understood exactly what he meant. If you've ever read my book, Messages in the Madness, then you know exactly that I know and I understand. He wasn't talking about monsters hiding under his bed. He was talking about something you could see. He was talking about those voices that seem to know exactly what to whisper at exactly the wrong time. Y'all know I'm laughing because I get it. The voice that tells you you're not making any progress, reminds you of every mistake you've ever made while conveniently forgetting every success. The voices that convinces you everyone else has it all figured out except for your dumb ass. That voice also tell you you're too old, you're too tired, you're too late, you're too broke, or you're too far behind. Yeah. I've heard those voices. It's a trip. It's a trip how those inner demons pick the most uninspiring places to try you. They will try you. You just standing there in the checkout line at the store, minding your own damn business, holding a carton of eggs and a loaf of bread, and your brain quietly whispers, you know you failed to reach your maximum potential, right? You know that, right? And you just looking at the cashier like, dude, I came in here for groceries. I didn't ask you for a spiritual audit. And he looks at you like you lost your damn mind. If we're being honest, most of us know those voices. Some hear them louder than others, but very few people make it through life without hearing them at all. As I listened to him, I didn't interrupt. I didn't offer advice. I didn't tell him everything would be okay. Sometimes people don't need a motivational speech. Sometimes they just need someone willing to sit with them in the middle of their mess. And we've talked about that. Listening is a lost art. We're surrounded by opinions. Social media has us convinced that everyone has an answer for everything before someone can finish explaining a damn problem. Someone is already typing the solution. Everybody else already got the answer. Oh, I got the answer for you right here. Blah, 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 blah. And they ain't even heard the whole damn story. But listening requires patience. Listening requires humility. Listening says for the next few minutes, your story is more important than my opinion. The more he talked, the more I noticed something that he couldn't see. His testimony didn't match the evidence. He was describing someone who had given up, but I wasn't hearing someone who had quit. I was hearing someone who was still fighting. Think about it. He had enough strength to pick up the phone and call. He was still looking for comedy bookings. He was still planning to open his comedy club. He was still dreaming, making plans, searching for ways to improve his health. He was still trying. He is still trying. Maybe not at 100%, maybe not every day, but he is still trying. Finally, I stopped him and I said, I need you to quit focusing on what you think you aren't doing and start looking at what you are doing. And there was silence again. Sometimes silence means someone is offended. Sometimes silence means someone is thinking. This was the second kind. I started pointing out the things he had overlooked. Dude, you got out of bed. You called me. You're still working on your dream. You're still looking for comedy gigs. You're still planning your comedy club. You are still moving forward. Yeah, you are. I wasn't making those things up to make him feel better. They were facts. They were evidence. Evidence. The problem wasn't that he had no evidence. The problem was that he had stopped looking at all of it. After we hung up, I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation. Not because I thought I had said something profound, because I realized I have done the exact same thing. Maybe not with comedy, maybe not with my career, but with life. I had seasons where I looked in the mirror and measured myself by everything I hadn't accomplished instead of everything I had accomplished. I've looked at unfinished goals instead of completed steps. I've focused on closed doors instead of the ones that had already opened. And yes, I've battled my own demons too. Not every day, but often enough to know they still out there. They hanging out. They waiting. They don't have to visit me every morning for me to recognize them. Oh, I know them on sight. I can hear them coming. They know where I live. They don't usually show up when life is going great. They wait. They wait patiently. They wait until disappointment shows up or grief. They wait until grief pays a visit. They wait until fatigue settles in. They wait until I've made a mistake. They wait until I begin comparing my life to someone else's highlight reel. Then they quietly begin building their case. They remind me of every failure, missed opportunity, regret, unfinished project, every dream that took longer than I expected. Oh, they're good attorneys. They're very good attorneys, but they're terrible truth tellers because they never present the whole case. Thanks, Roger. The more I thought about that conversation, the more I realized my friend wasn't doing anything unusual. In fact, he was doing something that most of us do more often than we like to admit. He had become the prosecutor in his own trial. He had gathered evidence, organized it neatly, and was presenting his case against himself. The problem wasn't that his evidence was false. His health challenges are real, money real, frustrations real, fears real. But they weren't the only facts. He had ignored every piece of evidence that suggested he was stronger than he believed. Isn't it amazing how selective we become when we're discouraged, when life is going well, when we have no trouble remembering our successes? We tell stories about them, we celebrate them, and we share them with family and friends, anybody that will listen. But when disappointment settles in, something changes. Suddenly, we become experts at remembering every failure, every one of them. We remember the opportunities we missed. We remember the relationships that ended, the promotions we didn't get. We remember the business that didn't work, the dreams that seem to be taking forever, the criticism, the rejection. We remember every reason we think we aren't enough. It's almost as if our minds become attorneys who only call witnesses that support one side of the case. The defense never gets a chance to speak. As I stated, as I sat there reflecting on my friend's words, another thought came to mind. I grew up understanding something about money. Nickels, dimes, pennies add up to dollars. It sounds simple, but because it is simple. But somewhere along the way, we forgot the lesson. Nobody gets excited when they find a penny on the sidewalk. Most people don't even pick them up no more. A nickel doesn't seem like much either. A dime won't change your financial future, but by themselves, they're insignificant. But you put them together, they become something valuable. The dollar doesn't exist without the change. Life works the same way. We spend so much time chasing dollars that we forget our lives are built with pennies. A marriage isn't built in one grand romantic gesture, it's built in thousands of moments, small moments. A conversation before work, holding hands in the parking lot, saying, I'm sorry, saying thank you, choosing kindness when irritation would have been easier. Those are pennies. Those are pennies. Parenting isn't one big moment. It's bedtime stories. It's school pickups, helping with homework, sitting through concerts and ball games, listening to stories you've already heard 5 times because your child is excited to tell them again. Those are pennies. Leadership isn't one inspirational speech. It isn't one annual meeting. It isn't one award hanging on the wall. Leadership is built every single day. Showing up prepared, keeping your word, listening when someone needs to be heard, correcting uh, with respect instead of embarrassment, celebrating someone else's success, being honest when honesty is uncomfortable. Those are pennies too. Dreams are built exactly the same way. People see the grand opening, they don't see the years before the ribbon cutting. They don't see the published book. I mean, they do see the published book, but they don't see the nights the author spent staring at a blank page, wondering if anyone would ever read it. They see the successful business. They don't see the sleepless nights wondering how the bills would get paid. They see the comedians standing up in the spotlight, but they don't see the empty calendar, the canceled shows, the long drives, or the nights spent wondering whether to keep going. I've been there. Let me show you how fast the prosecutor tries to build a case. But before I tell you that I'm reading my notes. People see the dollars, but they never see the change. But let me show you how fast prosecutors try to build a case. Just this past week, my in my corporate consulting travel, um, my travel plans got canceled. My travel plans got changed. I had to cancel 2 comedy gigs. I was really looking forward to them. One was in Arkansas and one was here. Then the corporate plans fell through anyway. After I had made all these other plans, they fell through anyway. The gigs were gone. I had already canceled, and it was too late. The calendar was blank, and the voice in my head started whispering that the weekend was a total waste. Instead of sitting in that courtroom, I went to support a clean comedy show at a local church. And no, the walls did not catch fire when I walked in. I was just there to watch 4 great comics do their thing. But the promoter, who had never seen me perform, stepped out on faith and asked me to do a guest spot. Now, church clean is a different horse. I've avoided riding for years, okay? It's a whole different level of pressure. But I said, let's do what we do. I got up, did 15 minutes, and it felt incredible. I even got a 3-person standing ovation. I don't know if I can't really say. They could have been going to the bathroom. They might have been heading to the bathroom, but I'm putting it in the win column anyway. The big weekend I had planned fell completely apart. That was the reality because I stopped to look at the evidence, I walked out of that church holding a handful of pennies. I conquered a fear I'd been avoiding for years, and I watched the promoter step out on faith to give me a shot. My weekend didn't look like a dollar bill, but when I counted the change, the ledger was full. My friend couldn't see his change. Hold on, let me see what Roger's saying here. Roger says, I talk every day and share what my biggest accomplishment does, my son. You know him. I still keep my failures in my head. I wish I could let them out and release baggage. Roger, you got to let them go. You got to stop carrying them hot rocks. You're going to have to stop carrying that baggage. You're going to have to just sit in your own space and say, look, I forgive me and I don't want this weight anymore. And you're going to have to release it. You're going to have to let it go. You're going to have to put it down. Your past is not who you are. Who you are today is Roger. And I need you to believe in you and move forward. Let go of that old shit. There's plenty of shit down the road that's going to get in your way. You don't need that old stuff. Put it down. Move forward. So, hey, Joe, good to see you, my friend. Getting back to my friend couldn't see his change. He thought getting out of bed didn't count because it wasn't opening the club. He thought making phone calls didn't count because they hadn't turned into enough bookings yet. He thought continuing to dream didn't count because the dream hadn't become reality. He had dismissed every nickel, every dime, every penny because none of them looked like a dollar. I wonder how often do we do the same? How many times have we ignored our own progress because we were too busy measuring the finish line? Maybe, maybe you've been trying to lose weight. You lost 3 pounds. Instead of celebrating, you criticized yourself because you wanted to lose 30. Maybe you've been rebuilding your finances. You're finally paid off one credit card. Instead of recognizing the victory, you focused on everything you still owe. Maybe you've been working on your marriage. You and your spouse have had one good conversation after months of tension. Instead of appreciating the breakthrough, you tell yourself there's still too much work left to do. Maybe, just maybe, you've been healing from grief. The first time in months, you laughed without feeling guilty. Instead of accepting it as progress, you wonder why you're still hurting. Those are all pennies. They are all deposits. Those are all signs that something is changing. The problem is we don't celebrate small victories because we've convinced ourselves they don't matter. But what if they matter more than you think? What if the small victories are actually the proof that we're moving in the right direction? Some people are content with their lives, and that's fine, and that's great. And if that is your case, then you have collected your dimes, your nickels, your pennies. You got your dollar. But not everybody is as fortunate as you. Not everybody is as fortunate to be content in their situation because they can't see their whole situation. Make sense? Y'all let me know in the comments if you're still with me. Put in 100, put a love, Put I'm with you, whatever. Put something in the comments. Just let me know that you're still with me in the chat. During my conversation with my friend, I suggested something that seemed almost too simple. I told him to start writing things down, not his failures, not his disappointment, his victories. Every single one of them for a week. If you got out of bed today when yesterday you didn't think you could, write it down. If you made one phone call that moved your dream forward, write it down. If you exercised for 10 minutes, write it down. Whatever it was. If you apologized when your pride wanted to stay silent, write it down. If you encouraged someone else while carrying your own burdens, write it down. Collect your change. Get your money, get your dimes, your pennies, your nickels. Get your change. At first, it won't seem like much. You'll look at the list and think, that's all I have accomplished? Yes, that's more than you accomplished yesterday. You wrote, remember we talked about it last week. You wrote a better page today than you did yesterday. Yes, you did. Tomorrow, you'll add another penny, another nickel, another dime. You might even get a quarter. Eventually, you'll look back and realize you've been building something all along. Banks understand something we forget. They never reject a deposit because it's too small. Imagine walking into a bank with a handful of pennies. The teller doesn't smile and say, come back when you have real money. No. A deposit is a deposit. Every penny increases the balance. Now, let me be honest with you. Most of us treat pennies like they're toxic waste. We find them in the couch cushions. We leave them in a little plastic cup by the cash register, or we toss them in a jar in the closet and pretend they don't exist because we're too proud to stand in the line at the grocery store at the Coinstar machine. We're too proud to do that. We treat our small victories the exact same way. We toss those aside like they're worthless because they aren't $100 bills. But that bank teller doesn't have an ego. They don't care about your pride. They just look at the metal, count the change, and add it to the ledger. Stop throwing away your own progress just because it feels too small to walk it into the bank. Maybe we should treat our lives the same way. Maybe we should stop rejecting our own progress simply because it doesn't look impressive yet. Maybe we should learn to celebrate consistency instead of waiting for perfection. Because, see, perfection is a moving target. Progress is something you can measure today. I think that's one of the reasons this discouragement is so dangerous. Discouragement convinces us that nothing is happening. The truth is, something is almost always happening. It is. It just isn't happening fast enough for our expectations. There were our demons. That's where our demons quietly step back into the courtroom. Yeah, I'm bringing it back around to y'all. That's where the demons quietly step back into the courtroom. They don't have to lie. They simply leave out the evidence they don't want the jury to hear. And if we're not careful, hell, we'll believe them. The more I thought about all of this, the more I realized something else. My friend didn't call me because he thought I had all the answers. He called me because we have a relationship. Somewhere along the line, he decided I was someone he could trust enough to tell the truth, and him the same. That isn't something I take lightly, and neither does he. It also made me ask myself a difficult question. Who do I call? Who reminds me of the truth when my own mind starts putting me on trial? Because here's something I've learned over the years. The encouragers need encouragement too. The leaders need leadership. The caregivers need someone to care for them. The comedians need someone to make them laugh. The veterans need someone watching their six. The speakers need someone willing to speak life back to them. None of us are designed to carry every burden by ourselves. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is that asking for help is a sign of weakness. I don't believe that anymore. I think asking for help is one of the strongest things a person can do. It takes courage to admit you're struggling. It takes humility to tell someone you're tired. It takes strength to say, I'm not okay today. James Coley, thank y'all. We've somehow convinced ourselves that strong people never struggle. That's nonsense. Strong people struggle. Strong people simply decide they won't struggle alone. That phone call reminded me of something else. Sometimes the most important questions you'll ask all day isn't what needs to get done. As I told you last week, it's how are you? And if we're going to ask that question, we got to be prepared to stay long enough to hear the answer. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I think it's worth repeating. We live in a world that rewards speed, fast food, fast internet, fast conversations. We ask people how they're doing while we're already walking away. We ask because it's polite, not because we're prepared for honesty. You can't handle the truth. Thanks, Jill. But every once in a while, someone tells you the truth. That's when you discover whether you're asking a question or simply following a script. I wonder how many people around us are just waiting for someone to care enough to ask a second time. How are you? No. How you doing for real? The second question has probably saved more lives than we'll ever know. Thank you, Ms. Colin. As I reflected on my conversations, another thought came to mind. Leadership isn't just about organizations. Leadership begins whenever someone else is influenced by your presence. Parents are leaders, teachers are leaders, coaches are leaders, pastors, business owners, service managers, friends are leaders. You don't need a title to influence someone. I don't have a title. You guys are sitting here listening to me. Every day, someone is paying attention to how you respond to adversity. They're watching how you handle disappointment, whether you keep your word. They're watching how you treat people who can't do anything for you. That's leadership. I've spent years working with leaders in dealerships all across the country. One thing I've noticed is that many leaders build a case against themselves too. Sales dip for a month, suddenly they believe they're failing. One technician quits, and they question whether they're the right person for the job. A customer leaves a bad review, and they forget about the hundreds of customers who drove away satisfied. One difficult conversation overshadows 50 successful ones. Sound familiar? It's the same courtroom. The same courtroom exists in leadership. The same prosecutor shows up. The same selective evidence gets presented. The same incomplete verdict is handed down. But great leaders learn to examine the entire case. They don't ignore problems. They simply refuse to let problems become the only evidence. They celebrate the technician who improved. They notice the advisor who's handled a difficult customer with grace. They recognize the apprentice who asked better questions this week than they did last week. They thank the parts employee who stayed late without being asked. Thank you, Brother August, my friend and brother. Those are nickels, people. Those are my dimes. Those are your pennies. And over time, those small deposits become trust. They become loyalty. They become culture. Culture isn't built during company picnics. It isn't created by motivational posters hanging on the wall. Culture isn't created one conversation at a time. Culture is created one conversation at a time, one decision at a time, relationship, just like our own lives. I don't know what case you're building against yourself today. I don't know what that case is. Maybe you've convinced yourself you're too old to start over. Maybe you decided you've missed your opportunity, or maybe you're carrying guilt that should have been put down years ago. Maybe you've made mistakes that still haunt you. Maybe you're grieving. Maybe you're lonely. Maybe you're exhausted. Maybe, just maybe, you've simply forgot how far you have already come. Roger, I'm going to tell you one more time. You need to find somebody to talk to, whether it's a friend, family, or go see a professional. You got to get that out of you, man. Yeah. So if that's you, I'd like to ask you to do something, because your own defense attorney, become your own defense attorney for a few minutes. Not because you should make excuses, not because you should pretend your mistakes never happened, but because every fair trial deserves the whole and entire truth. Present all the evidence. Don't just list your failures or your victories. Remember the people who you've helped. Remember the obstacles you've overcome. Remember the prayers that have already been answered. Remember the doors that have already opened. Remember the mornings you got out of bed when you didn't think you could. Remember the phone calls you made, the kindness you showed, the forgiveness you offered. Remember the courage it took to just keep going. Those count. Every single one of them counts. They may not look like dollars. They may only feel like nickels, dimes, and pennies. But don't ever underestimate the value of small deposits made consistently over time. So before I leave, let me leave you with one final thought. Hey, Annette, good to see you. I'm going to leave you with one final thought. My friend called to ask me about a supplement. That's how the conversation started. But I don't think that's why he called. I think sometimes God has a way of disguising the real reason behind our conversations. Sometimes people ask us one question because they're afraid to ask another. Sometimes they ask about vitamins when they really need what they really need is hope. Sometimes they ask about work when they really what they really need is encouragement. Sometimes they ask about life because they need someone to remind them they're still living. Maybe, just maybe. That's why it's important to slow down, to listen, to care, to ask the second question, because you never know when your words might become someone else's evidence. You don't. You never know when one conversation might keep someone moving forward one more day. And sometimes one more day is everything. So before you convict yourself, before you tell yourself you're not enough, before you decide you're failing, before you give up on your dream, before you conclude that nothing is changing, stop and take another look at your evidence. Count your change, celebrate your pennies, appreciate your nickels, be thankful for your dimes, because one day you'll discover that while you were waiting for dollars, your entire life was being built by the change you almost overlooked. And before you reach a verdict, make sure you've heard the whole case, because the truth deserves to be heard. So do you. Your Honor, I rest my case. Guys, this is hope you guys enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. Miss Annette, whatever's going on with you, we do pray for you. Well, guys, this has been another episode of Messages in the Madness with yours truly, Vernon Longhorn Davis. And I see him doing the Max Headroom thing again. But I thank y'all and I appreciate y'all very much. I hope you enjoyed the message. And like I say, before, this is it don't get no realer than this, y'all. It's not. It don't get no realer than this. So with that, I'm gonna say what I always say. I love you, God loves you. Take care of yourself, love yourself, respect yourself. Yeah. Take care of them kids, respect our vets. Well, you can go back and hear the replay, daughter. Respect our vets. I'm Vernon Longhorn Davis. This has been another episode of Messages in the Madness. Until next Sunday, God bless y'all. $2.